open up the champagne, pop. It's my house, come on, turn it up. Hear a knock on the door and the night begins. Cause we've done this before, so you come on in. Make yourself at my home, tell me where you been. Pour yourself something cold, baby, cheers to this. Sometimes you gotta stay in, and you know where I live. Yeah, you know what we is. Sometimes you gotta stay in. Welcome to my house, baby, take control now. We can't even slow down. We don't have to go a while. Welcome to my house, play that music too loud. Show me what you do now. We don't have to go a while. Welcome to my house. Welcome to my house. Morning comes and you know that you wanna stay. Close the blinds, let's pretend that the time has changed. Keep our clothes on the floor, open up champagne. Let's continue tonight, come on, celebrate. That's how we do. Sometimes you gotta stay in, and you know where I live. Yeah, you know what we is. Sometimes you gotta stay in. Welcome to my house, baby, take control now. We can't even slow down. We don't have to go a while. Welcome to my house, play that music too loud. Show me what you do now. We don't have to go a while. Welcome to my house. Welcome to my house. Welcome to my duck off the crib, the spot, the pad. But my house is your house if you throwing it back. Excuse me if my home draining the sand. Soon as these happy faces land, you can run with the cash. Home run, slam dunk, touchdown pass. Mi casa es tu casa, so it ain't no holding back. Another shot of vodka, you know what's in my glass. It's my house, just relax. Welcome to my house, baby, take control now. We can't even slow down. We don't have to go. Cheers to this. Welcome to my house. Play that music too loud. Show me what you do now. We don't have to go a while. Welcome to my house.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another session, another episode of our Hacking HR live chat series. Thank you so much for being connected in here, whatever platform you're using right now, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. Please let us know where you are connecting from. I just posted in the chat. It would be awesome to know where everybody's connecting from. And if you are watching this replay, evidently it's not live anymore. And I'm hoping that you are enjoying not only this conversation, but the many other videos and conversations that we've had over the past couple of months with brilliant, talented, incredible authors sharing their ideas, their insights, their recommendations with us in the community. If you are watching live right now and you have missed any of the previous conversations that we've had, just go to the Hacking HR website, hackinghr.io, and click on live chats, and you will find the many sessions, the many conversations that we've had. We are trying to find, by the way, a better way to, well, not a better way, because we want you to watch the entire video. We're trying to find additional ways for you to be able to get some of that content if you can't watch the entire thing, which I'm hoping you do. But I will be sort of sharing some of that later on. Super excited about today. This is my second conversation, by the way. I generally don't do two live chats on the same day, but I just couldn't help it, to be honest. Especially now, getting so close to May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month. And a lot of the conversations that I'm bringing, a lot of the guests that I'm bringing to the show, to this live chat series, are discussing about things related to holistic well-being, mental health, wellness, and it's just exciting. So I just couldn't help to have a second guest for the day. So now we're going to be talking about the full body yes, changing your work, change your work and your world from the inside out. So super excited to welcome Scott right now. Scott, you're coming to the screen. Good morning. Well, let me see. Good morning, Asil. How are you?
It's still morning. Hello. Hi, Enrique. Hi, everybody. Good to be with you.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Super excited about our conversation. And for those who are connected online right now, watching via Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, or Twitter, can you please let us know more about who you are, the work you've done, why
Sure.
you got into this space of really holistic well being, and more about the book, Full Body
Sure.
Yes?
Sure. Oh, so much space to cover.
Yeah.
Well, a little about me. The highlight is I spent most of my career in the customer service world and customer facing roles. I was the VP of Global Customer Operations at LinkedIn, big team. I was there during the big growth phase of LinkedIn from small to very large. And since I was 13, I've had a meditation practice. I've been teaching since I was in college.
Mm.
It's a huge part of my life outside of work. I never really talked about it at work. But long story short, I found LinkedIn to be such an open place that I eventually brought this practice to the workplace. I started by leading a meditation. Then I was volunteering to be our executive sponsor of our mindfulness program. We didn't really have one. So myself and a bunch of other volunteers created one. And over time, over 3 or 4 years, actually created a full-time role out of that. I was the head of mindfulness and compassion programs at LinkedIn for a number of years. And then during COVID time, I wrote a book called The Full Body Yes. And now I'm out in the world helping other companies become more conscious and helping everyone, deal with our own challenges and what goes on between our ears. And that's why I talk about changing the world and your work from the inside out.
That's exciting. And we have a lot to cover about the book, but I do want to ask you this, given your work and your evolution at LinkedIn, you created your own role. And I want to know more about that because that's so
Yeah.
exciting, man. And I got to tell you, you just said, I did this and I volunteer and I, did some programs and then
Yeah.
boom, you created that role. Can you tell us more about that journey?
Sure. Well, when somebody says to me, hey, how can I do what you do? Or how can I do the thing that I love? I start with just start doing it, right? If you really love it, just start doing it. And so here I was leading an organization of 1,000 people, but I was spending time. It started with just an hour a week and kind of blossomed into 5 or 10 hours a week of doing the things that I loved. And essentially I was creating a program, and then I created a group of volunteers, and I was leading all of the volunteers. And so I had 2 or 3 years of experience in building and doing the work. And then for me, the tipping point was our CEO at the time, Jeff Weiner, gave the commencement address at Wharton. This was 4 or 5 years ago. And he talked about compassion. And he told his own story of transformation from perhaps not being so compassionate to being compassionate and the difference it made in his life. This is at Wharton, right? Very serious button-down Wharton. And then the next day he's on TV. This is all the reporters want to talk about is compassion in the workplace, compassion in leadership. And I was thinking to myself, I'd been in my ops role for 6 years. I was ready for something different. I was thinking it's time. It's time for me to really do this work full time, but it's also time for LinkedIn because essentially our CEO was telling the 20,000 employees of LinkedIn that compassion was the most important thing that they could do through, this commencement address. So I made a pitch to him and to our head of HR, and with their collective support, we created this role. But it didn't just come out of nowhere. This is who I was. This is how I was spending my time. I had already built something fairly substantial before asking for, the keys to a full-time role.
Yeah, and I love that you put the work in, but it sounds that you were doing it because you cared for it, you wanted to do it, and maybe I don't know, but did you ever envision being in that role rather than just saying, I'm just doing it because I love it, I like it.
In the beginning, no, but over time, absolutely.
Yeah.
Over time, I was definitely thinking about it. And honestly, I put it off because I felt like I could have a bigger impact from being a VP leading a big organization versus being more of a consultant or, you know, somebody on the side. And I played with that for a long time, you know, and stayed in this role. And over time, I realized that I could have the type of impact I wanted scale both inside and outside of LinkedIn.
Oh, I love that. Now, what is the full body yes? Now let's just start digging into the book. What is the full body yes?
Yeah. The full body yes is when you just know, like every fiber of your being just knows without a doubt. And I don't know about you, but that is often not what is happening, you know, with me. Like sometimes, yes. So let's say you're having breakfast and you're trying to decide between whatever cereal and eggs, and you just decide, okay, that's something, but it's not that big of a deal. But when you're struggling, right, on a big decision, you know, to stay with this job or that job or this relationship or that relationship or something that causing us strain, we often feel really conflicted.
Mm.
And then when I find, sometimes it happens by grace, sometimes we go after it, sometimes we achieve a sense of calm where we just know the answer, where we're just 100% sure of the answer.
Mm.
And so in the book, I talk about my own experiences of sometimes it just happened to me. And then sometimes there's ways that we can go get it. There's ways that we can cultivate more of a deep sense of connection and deep sense of knowing so that we can reduce some of that conflict that we're having inside.
I love that. And I'm actually reflecting about the times in my own life when by sheer grace, right, that opportunity came to me and I said to myself, you know, this is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And some other times it was forced on me by the universe.
Yeah.
And but I realized I'm glad that the universe is helping me out in this case.
That's right.
I'm some people call it God and whatever you want to call it. I just say the universe. And
Yeah.
Because reflecting back, you know, I think would I have been able to make that decision on my own if I hadn't seen sort
That's
of the circumstances kind of aligning for me to make a decision?
It's a really good point, because there are times in all of our lives when we can look back 10 years ago or 20 years ago and we can see something that was really hard for us.
Mm-hmm.
But with the benefit of time, we can say, oh my God, that was exactly what should have happened. I'm so glad that happened. We weren't glad about it at the time.
Yeah.
Right? Because we couldn't see. As an example, there was a period of my career where my job was eliminated 3 times over the course of 4 years.
Wow.
Now, that's a really hard thing to go through. I know lots of people are going through something similar today. It's a hard thing to go to. With the benefit of time, 15 years later, I can absolutely tell you with 100% certainty, that was the best thing that could have happened to me for my career. Now, in the moment, it didn't feel like that.
Yeah.
In the moment, it didn't feel like that. And this is what I call kind of like black belt level gratitude. You know, we can be grateful for the things that were hard in the past, but if we can shift our attention to the hard things now and make the assumption, this is for me, right? This is not happening to me. This is happening for me.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can, you know, get clear internally and do the things I need to do along with it, then this is how we change our world, right? Because we start to rearrange our framing. Because when we believe that we're a victim and this is happening for me, everything's bad, right?
Yeah.
Unless it's exactly what I want. But if we can shift and get curious and can say, I don't like this. This is not what I wanted. But how can I get curious? What bigger thing or better thing or just new thing could this provide me if I were able to dance with the universe in this way?
Mm-hmm.
And we can get rid of a lot of our own angst and pain if we operate that way.
Yeah, and I definitely would love for you to maybe share with us how do we do that, right? Because, you know, one concept, by the way, that I knew, I have known for a long time, but it's not easy for me to, or for anybody, I think, for that matter, to embrace is this idea of finding joy in the things that are seemingly conducive to happiness, but also in the things that are not that conducive to happiness, but out of which you can learn or reframe them in a way that you know that they are making you better for whatever comes next. But that requires something in you in that very moment, so that you say, yes, this sucks, man, but it's making me better. How do you reframe that?
Let's This is an excellent territory. Thank you for this question. First, let's differentiate a little bit between happiness and joy, right? Happiness, generally, I'll really generalize, is the things that happen to us, right? I'm happy if I get promoted or I get a new relationship or I win the lottery, whatever. Good things happen to us, we're happy. And when bad things happen to us, we're unhappy. But joy is a sense of kind of like happiness, except it comes from the inside out. Joy does not require the outside circumstances to be perfect in order to feel joy, right? And so how do we cultivate joy? Well, first of all, it's the realization that chasing happiness is not the maybe the best mountain to climb, right? The new car, the whatever, blah, blah, blah. But joy, that internal cultivation, this is where it's at. Now, people do this in different ways. For some people, it's a spiritual practice. For some people, it's part of their hobby, or just, the things that calm them down, the things that allow them to connect to something deeper, whether it's fishing, whether it's being in the outdoors, like your beautiful photography behind you. For each of us to find that place and really cultivate it, this is what creates lasting joy, where happiness is fleeting, right?
Yeah.
I can get a job, but the job can be taken away. I can have a relationship, the relationship can leave me. Joy, when done, always stays with us, no matter who we are, what we do, and the situation around us.
I love that. I am reflecting. I'm a runner, and I go out on a lot of very long distance races, and it hurts. It hurts when you're doing that. And what I find myself telling myself now when I am in those races is just enjoy the journey. You are here because you wanted to be here. You paid to be here.
That's right.
Enjoy the journey. It's not just getting to the destination. I mean, look around and see the beauty. I know your feet are hurting and your back is killing you and you're so exhausted and dehydrated, but this is such a unique opportunity. But that's a choice that I made to be there. Now, let me ask you this. When it's not your choice, when you, and I know we're going to get into very, kind of like complex and real scenario here, but the person who has to pay the bills, couple of kids, mortgage on the house, whatever, and gets fired from their job.
Yeah.
How can they find joy? How can they find, the peace, or I don't know what to call it.
So look, it's a very real situation, right? Yeah. There are very, very real situations happening in the world. Everything from war and famine and abuse and all of these things are true. So one of the questions that we can ask always, regardless of what's happening, is what else is true? Because typically we focus on what's wrong. Okay, I just got laid off. I can't pay the bills. My mortgage is coming, blah. And we get fixated on what's wrong. And I'm not saying it's not true. What I'm saying is when we only fixate on what's wrong, it leads us into a state of mind which is not healthy. It's not creative. We become very small. Like an animal. At the root of it, we're just animals reacting to life. What we're trying to do is respond to life. And so one of the questions we can ask ourselves, whether our problem is very big and severe or, just annoying, we ask ourselves, what else is true? And in that moment, what else is true? Well, okay, I'm still surrounded by my loved ones. I have my health. The weather's good. I have clean water to drink. There's a long list of things that are true, right? And if I can focus on what's true, meaning what's good, if I can focus on what's good in my life, then it gives me the strength to deal with what's hard in my life, right? I'm not ignoring what's hard. I'm not putting my head in the sand. I'm not sugarcoating it. It's still there, right? But if I can focus on what's good, it gives me strength to deal with it. Where if I only focus on what's bad, sometimes we get overwhelmed.
Yeah. I love the question of what else is true, for so many different reasons. And one thing that I'm reflecting about is, when we're going through something negative, either ourselves or other people are telling us, put things in perspective. And so I have a love-hate relationship with the idea of putting things in perspective, right? Because yes, I may have some other positive things going on in my life. I'm not in Ukraine in the middle of a war, but I'm
Right.
like, this matters to me, man. Like this is important to me.
Yeah.
So putting things in perspective, like that, the framing of that question, sometimes I have that love-hate relationship with it.
Yeah.
But your question, what else is true? It's
Yeah.
about me now. It's about my situation. Yes, I know there's a world out there with a lot of stuff going on. But for me is what else is true, right? What else is true? What else is positive? What else can help me, navigate the complexity and the adversity that I may be going through right now? I love that question.
Yeah. Gives us strength.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this. Full body, yes, changing your work, your world from the inside out. And you've already shared a few insights about that. But what else has to happen inside us so that we change our work and our world? What has to be different within ourselves?
A good one is we take responsibility. One of my favorite quotes is from Rumi, a poet from 600 or 700 years ago from Persia, spiritual teacher and poet. He says, yesterday I was clever and I tried to change the world. Today I'm wise and I'm working on changing myself. And so it's the shift of, we can say, oh, who am I? Look, the world is happening to me, all this stuff. And, we can make a list of complaints about what's going on. But instead, we start thinking about, well, actually, how are we responding to the world? Because look, our happiness is not based on what's happening to us. It's based on how we respond to what's happening to us. Right? Viktor Frankl wrote about this in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl was in a Nazi concentration camp during World War II. This is, that's a terrible place to be. I don't want to trade places with him.
Yeah.
But he ended up finding a mindset, a way of looking at things, which is, focusing on the inspirational versus the what's wrong. And so for each of us, it's to look at our own mindset, to take responsibility for how we respond to the world. Yes, I can't control if I get laid off or if there's war coming or the weather, or there's lots of things I can't control. But I can control how I respond to each one of those things. I can respond with curiosity or love or grace, or I can respond with anger and frustration and manipulation. And ultimately, it's a choice. Every action, every word, every thought either pollutes or purifies. Every action, word, or thought either pollutes or purifies. So we have to ask ourselves, are we going to continue to pollute ourselves and the world around us, or are we going to purify it? And when we choose that we're responsible and we choose to purify it, not only do we change what's going on inside here, but our actions start to change. So we literally start to change what's going on in the rest of the world as well.
Oh, that is fantastic. I am thinking about this book that I read recently about chronic pain. It's called A Way Out. Fascinating book. I don't know if you've read it. Fascinating book, A Way Out. And the doctor who wrote the book, he calls some kind of chronic pain neuroplastic pain. He says it's all it's real, it hurts, but it's all happening in your brain.
Yes.
And part of the strategy he uses is, he says, you have to explore with curiosity what's happening in your body, but it has to be detached from the outcome. You are not thinking, this thing hurts and I want it to be better. No, you're just exploring. And I want to ask you, thinking about that model, I want to ask you, given that you're talking about curiosity and words that purify or pollute the world and ourselves, are these things outcome connected or outcome detached? Are you thinking about this as in the world can continue and may continue to be a chaotic place? I can't control that, but I can control, regardless of that outcome, I can control what is happening within myself.
I think if we think about what does success look like is another way of asking this question, right? If you think about typically the way we define success, myself included, is I want to be successful in my job and relationships and financially and, do the things I like to do. That feels like success. This is what society tells us is success. Again, that's a trap. That's the happiness trap, right? We're chasing happiness and all of that is external. None of that is what's going on with me. So if I reframe it towards, is success, how I respond to it. Well, what does that mean? You could frame it in the spiritual. Like, what does spiritual success look like? Oh, well, I would have this level of grace. I'd have this level of understanding. I'd have this level of love in my heart. Now think about that for every situation. Okay, I just got laid off. All right, well, my external, my first meter is like, oh, well, that's not good. That's not success in the climbing of mountain of my career. But in the other way, if I'm measuring it as, oh, I'm curious, I'm full of love, I'm full of light. Well, what does that allow me to do? It's not just it's not just hiding my head in the sand or ignoring what happened. But what it does is like, oh, this is curious. Like, I wonder what my role was in me getting laid off, right? Or I wonder what was going on with the company, or I wonder what's next for me. I wonder, right? This question, I wonder, right? If we really get curious, then we can start to open ourselves up to possibility, and opening ourselves up to possibility leads to more success in the traditional way as well, in addition to just allowing us to have more of that inside out type of joy.
Oh, that is fantastic. What does that allow me to do? I am reflecting about that question now. Now, I got a couple of powerful questions from you, by the way, to reflect on and think about all the time. And now, let me ask you. I know in the book you talk a lot about self-compassion, compassion in general. Can you just
Sure.
develop more what
Sure.
self-compassion, compassion mean in the context of a full body yes?
Sure. Well, let me define compassion. There's lots of definitions. I like this one. So to me, compassion is first about capacity, right? Because our capacity for compassion ebbs and flows minute by minute, day by day, for three things. The first is awareness of others. The second is a mindset of kindness towards them. And the third is the courage to take action. So awareness, kindness, action. Now, you think about that for ourselves, right? Because oftentimes we're our harshest critic, right? Dealing with the person between my ears is sometimes the hardest person I deal with every day. So first, do we have awareness of ourselves? And this goes back to asking the question, what else is true? Because often, at work, as an example, you ever get a performance review, for the folks listening? Like, I've gotten a performance review, and here's what usually happens. Performance review can be, let's call it 3 or 4 pages long. 4 pages of all the good things that Scott did last time period. And there's 3 bullets of here are the things Scott can do next time to improve. And where do we typically focus? We focus on the 4 pages of what went wrong, right? And again, this leads us to a dark place. We start to believe that we are less than we really are. We don't have the full picture. So again, the question is, what else is true? And really, this is mindfulness. Mindfulness is seeing the whole picture without judgment, right? We're not narcissistic. We're not pretending that we're perfect, but we're also not wallowing in the 3 bullets of, the things that didn't go as well as we'd like. We see the whole picture. This is awareness. The second piece is having a mindset of kindness, or you could say having a mindset of love towards either another person or towards myself. So a really powerful technique. Actually, should we try something?
Yeah, let's try it.
Yeah. So here's something, if you're just playing along, if you're driving, maybe keep your eyes open, but you can close your eyes and just put your hand on your heart and maybe just take a breath and realize that your hand is on your heart. And you can say your name followed by, I love you. So I would say, Scott, I love you. But you guys try it at home.
Enrique, I love you.
Yeah. Yeah. And then just notice, and you can open your eyes and just notice how you felt. So for some of us, we have a hard time doing this, right? Because we think about all the reasons, the very human reasons of why we shouldn't blah, blah, blah. But really, we can't love ourselves. If we can't love ourselves, who can we love? And so it's viewing ourselves without judgment and being able to love ourselves without judgment. And then once we can do that for ourselves, we can do it with other people as well. And then the third piece of compassion or self-compassion is the courage to take action. What does that mean? Well, thinking about ourselves, self-compassion. Well, maybe there's going back to my actions, words, or thoughts that either pollute or purify. There's some things that are easier than others in life, right? It's easier for me, as an example, to eat potato chips than it is to eat broccoli. It's easier to hang out and watch one more episode of something versus going out and exercising, doing something that's harder. And so the courage to take action is really to say, I love you. What do you need? What do I need? And then do that thing. It could be taking care of my body or my mind. It could be speaking up for the things that I really need with my partner or my boss or my mother, whoever. But are we brave enough to fight for ourselves and what we really need? So back to the three things. Are we aware of what's going on in a non-judgmental way? Do we have an attitude of love towards ourselves? And then do we have the courage to take action on our own behalf? And if we do those things, we're going to be in a much better place.
Oh, I love that. How do you balance? Thank you for that. And for the moment of self-love, I appreciate it. And I hope everybody tuning in whatever network you're using or watching the replays, you engage in this exercise, 10-second, 15-second exercise. But let me ask you this. How do you balance reflection and action? And I know you talk a lot about that in the book as well. How do you do to not become paralyzed by the constant reflection? And how do you also not get yourself in a grind hustle that doesn't let you think about what's going on with you and with what you're doing?
There's this balance. I love this balance. In fact, I just created a workshop that I lead called Balancing Our Ambition with Our Inner Peace. Right? It's essentially these two things. And I'll share a couple stories that come from the spiritual traditions that highlight the tear between these two things. In one story, there's some sort of, let's call it a baptism event. And the teacher's with the student. The teacher dunks the student in the water, but then holds him there and continues to hold him there for a very long time. And at first it's peaceful for the student, he's part of this event, but then he starts to struggle for air and starts really thrashing for air. And in the last moment, right before he's about ready to die, the teacher whisks him back above the water and he breathes, right? And later they're having a discussion, a debrief maybe. And the teacher says, when you want truth, or the divine, whatever you want to say, when you want truth as much as you wanted air, you'll find it. Okay, so to me, this is about action, right? If you take action, you'll receive. Okay, there's another story where the teacher is having a conversation with the student and says, after a long discourse, when you finally let go of all your striving, of all your seeking, of all your looking for truth, you'll find it. And I thought, well, how can these two things exist in the same universe, right?
Yeah.
How can action, if action is the path towards truth, how can rest also be the path towards truth? And to me, this is summed up also in a tradition. If you've ever seen sand mandalas that the Tibetan monks build, if you've not seen this, go do a Google search on sand mandalas. And the way it works is they create this outline on the floor, on a big piece of paper or something, and then they fill it in with colored sand, but they're dropping the sand individually into these places. Now think about that for a second. You have this outline of where you want to go. You're painstakingly dropping individual colored sand into a location, which means you have to be fully focused on this thing. Right? You can't be thinking about something else, because if you spill the green sand into the blue sand, I think you probably have to start over, right? You can't pick them out of each other. So they do it for hours and hours, sometimes days or weeks, to create these beautiful designs. And at the end, when it's finally complete, what do you think they do? Well, if it were me, I would shellac that thing. I would put it on the wall. I would take selfies of it and put it on Instagram, whatever. No, they sweep it up into some containers. They find a body of water, they bless it, and they let it go. So they have the action and the letting go. So in our lives, it's a constant balance between these two things. I take action, I let go. And one of the things really, like getting down into brass tacks, what does this mean for us? There's a set of things that we can do towards our goal, whatever the goal is, that we are in control of, and we can take those actions. There's also a set of things that we have no control over, and we have to let those go. So think about the big issues in the world, right? To make this is hard. We think about war or the environment or politics or whatever. There's a certain set of things, a very small set of things that we actually have control over. And for us, then it's our job to take action in where we feel appropriate for our own lives and our own situation, to take action. And then there's a lot of things that we have no control over, right? And we have to let those go. And that's really, really hard because there's a lot of stuff going on in the world. And to be able to just say, I'm going to let that be. I'm going to do, and I'm going to let go. And this is really the path to the top of the mountain. It's super hard.
Very, very hard. Because we are, social beings. And I do think that we're all connected and, like a little bit of a butterfly effect here. But, when it comes to pain and suffering, you see what's going on in Ukraine and many other war zones in the world, Syria, whatever it is, the border between Venezuela and Colombia, and Venezuela is my birth country, by the way. So you think I have an urge to do something, but it's just hard to let go and let be what I know I have no control over or influence over. I mean, that's such a hard exercise.
It's extraordinarily hard.
Yeah. Scott, let me ask you this. I don't know if you've done this exercise, by the way, but if you were to put your book in a text processing machine or something like that, what are the 3 or 4 most common words that you think are present in your book? Not the prepositions and stuff like that.
And.
Yeah, not an and or commas. No, like the action words like related with the topic of your book.
Oh,
what do you think would be the most common ones?
I don't know about most common. How about let's go to most powerful. Let's go to most powerful.
Most powerful ones.
I think self-responsibility, right? Taking responsibility for our own lives. This is such a hard thing to do, right? We're so wired that it's somebody else's fault. Right? And there's this evolution that we go through from, kind of from me to we, but it's 3 steps. The first step is life is happening to me, right? I'm a victim. I'm just whatever's happening. The second step is life is happening for me. I get curious about why life is happening for me, right? And I get responsible for my own actions. And when I'm in tune with that deepest part of me, right? When I'm really in tune, which is another way of saying when I'm in tune with the universe, then life can happen through me, right? I've developed all these skills, in the other 2 zones, and I have now this skill set that now life can use to be a co-creator with me. I can be a co-creator with life if I'm fully in tune. And when we're in that spot, that's joy from the inside out. Then it matters so much less what actually happens around us, because we have agency to be in control of what we can control and do the best we can with that. And when we're there, then we change the world, right? It's not the other way around. It's from the inside out.
Oh, that's fantastic. I know another of the powerful words in your book, which you talked a little bit about at the beginning of the conversation, is gratitude. And I would love for you to bring gratitude to the context of all the conversation that we've just had. Yes. Gratitude with others and with ourselves too, by the way. I don't know if you can develop more of that too. Yeah.
Absolutely. I was reading a quote from my teacher, and he was essentially saying, if you want to know how far you are along spiritually, it's not necessarily the big experiences you have or whatever. It's how much you love life. Okay, so think about that for a minute. So if we want to cultivate this joy that we talked about, we want to cultivate this love for life, gratitude is a simple, powerful tool that allows that. Because what we're saying is we're noticing, right? We're noticing and looking for the good. And sometimes the good smacks us up against the head, right? And it could be, oh, it's our birthday. Somebody gives us a present. We thank them for the present. That's low-hanging fruit, right? But can we be grateful for all of it? You know, can we be grateful, yes, for the sunshine, but also for the challenge? Can we be grateful for the things that go well and also the things that don't go well? Can we get curious about why it's not going well and curious about how we can learn about it? Because honestly, that helps us move faster. So gratitude, having this inner well of gratitude is how one of the ways that we cultivate this joy.
I think that's it's fantastic to think that being grateful, we extend this gratitude to others, and very often we do. I think for the most part, most people do, right? But when you ask somebody, do you do this for to yourself? Do you express gratitude to yourself? I'm gonna say that probably even if people do it, they would take some time to think if they actually do it, which is already a hint that they don't do it that often.
This is hard, right? We're conditioned to find our own flaws and fix them.
Yeah.
Right? We're conditioned to look for what's wrong and fix it.
Yeah.
Whether it's with ourselves, whether we're a leader at work, I call it pothole management, right? There can be 1,000 miles of perfect road, and if there's one pothole, that is where our attention goes. Right? And so for ourselves, I doubt that very many of us watching or listening to this are really experts at this. To really be able to sit down on a regular basis and kind of recount, okay, here's what went well during the day. Hey, if I'm talking to myself, Scott, nice job. Nice job. Well done on that podcast you did today. Well done on that proposal you wrote. Well done on the conversation, the tough conversation you had. I just don't think I'll speak for myself, which is probably true for all of us. I don't think I'm spending enough time really cultivating and getting curious about the things that went well. Remember, in our self-compassion, it's awareness. So this practice is partly about awareness, but then it's having a mindset of love or a mindset of kindness. And then it's the taking action. Because imagine if we're doing that, if we're cultivating it, what does that do? Because I know some of you listening are like, okay, why would I do that? Does it like reduce my edge? Does it make me soft?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. Yeah. What we're doing is we're becoming more aware of who we really are, right? We're asking ourselves the question, in addition to the 3 bullets of what's wrong, what else is true? Where else am I strong? And when we focus on the light, it helps us deal with the dark. When we focus on our own strengths, it helps us shore up our weaknesses.
I'm thinking about, this may sound a little ridiculous, by the way, but we can't deny that we live in this world with its conditions and the way it is, how busy it is, and that we now depend for mostly everything on our calendar in our phones or computers, and we're running a acting with kindness and compassion challenge in Hacking HR. We're doing this for the first time, and one of the activities we said, all the activities will take less than 10 minutes a day, and one of the activities literally is this: put in your calendar a recurrent sort of a invite, whatever you call it, to be grateful with yourself, to take 4 or 5 minutes a day, put it in your calendar, because I don't think it's going to happen if you don't do it that way. You will just forget about it, or you will do it for 1 week and then you won't do it anymore. Put a recurring thing in your calendar.
I love this.
5 minutes. And I'm thinking about what you said, because we are every day, either ourselves are telling us the story of the pothole in the 1 mile or the 100-mile road that is perfect, or the world is telling us, yes, that's good, but the pothole, right? So we need to be very intentional about this, right?
That's right. I love what you're saying. One of my favorite things, I spent my career in operations, right? So I hate waste. I love it when things run. One of my favorite quotes is from James Clear. He wrote Atomic Habits, which I know many of you have read or familiar with. And there's 2 things in the book that are really important, and one of them is about systems. He says, I'll paraphrase, our lives do not rise to the level of our goals. They fall to the level of our systems. which is very wise. And also Archilochus said it 2,500 years ago, but James Clear, revived it and made it new. Our lives do not rise to the level of our goals or our intentions. They fall to the level of our systems, our planning, our structure. So if we want to have more gratitude in our life, we build a system. It could be the calendar, every Friday for 5 o'clock during noon, I'm going to do this practice. It could be at the dinner table with my family. We go around the table, everybody share what they're grateful for. It could be at the beginning of every staff meeting. We go around and just give space, 3 or 4 minutes for people to say what they're grateful for. All of these things help us, and it also helps those around us. But we got to build a system or it doesn't happen.
Absolutely. And this is a great way to segue into my last question to wrap up our conversation. By the way, I always, for everybody tuning in, and I told this to Scott before, I always, from in this case, Scott's book, I always take so many notes and questions, and often I end up not asking any of them because I get so much into the conversation that the questions become a little irrelevant. But I've asked a few of them, but I do want to ask you this last question. We are so used now to seeing immediate results to everything we do, right? We go to the New Year resolution. January 1st, let's go on a diet for 4 days. At the end of the day number 4, which won't happen,
you will look like a supermodel.
Yeah, that's not going to happen, of course. You will not lose or become the fit person that you want to become. And then you're like, well, this is not working. I'm not going to do it anymore. So that's person number 1, right? Person number 2 is, yeah, Scott, all that sounds cool, man, but I don't want to be a softie. I don't want to be that fluffy. And therefore, I don't think that's going to work. Yeah. And there are people who absolutely think that, work is work and work is to come and do your thing and forget about mindfulness and forget about finding yourself and your purpose and being self-compassionate. Yeah. You do what you got to do and we pay you for that. What do you say to those 3 kinds of people?
Sure. Well, I'd say that's, good luck with that is what I would say. So I reframe it, right? I would ask, if I'm having a conversation with that person, I would say, do you want to be a high-performing individual? Oh, well, yeah, I want to perform at my absolute peak. Okay. Everything we talked about today is about performing at your peak, right? Because as an example, if you're fixated only on what's wrong, you end up not being creative.
Yeah.
Right? If you're a team leader and you fixate on only what's wrong, you're not going to be inspirational. You're not going to get the best out of your people. You're not going to find creative solutions. If you're not curious, right? If you're not curious about yourself or about the environment, you're not going to understand what the customer's needs are and really understand how to solve their problems. You're not going to understand how to build creative solutions for them, how to keep the best people, how to retain them, all of it. Everything, 100% of what I talked about is about getting to the point where you can operate at your peak as a human in addition to a spiritual being. And even if you don't care at all about being a spiritual being, all the same lessons apply to being an amazing human.
Love that. If there's a clear indication that this makes you better as a person and as an employee in your productivity and performance, I mean, this is it, right? I mean, it's evidence. And I think one of the things that excites me the most of these times that we're living in is that now we are exploring more about the ins and outs and the way our brains work. And we're now finding that what those classic authors and thinkers and philosophers, 2,500 years ago said in, Greece and Iran, Persia, and, in China, many other areas, now we're proving that there's science behind it, right? That the science says is true.
There's some really interesting research, I'll call it about compassion. It fits the same way. And so Raj Sisodia and the team that wrote the book Firms of Endearment and later Conscious Capitalism did this research. And they found that companies who solve for the whole, they solve for the we instead of just the me, were actually more profitable.
Yeah.
So in other words, companies who create a balance, instead of just solving for money, instead of just solving for shareholders, they solve for the needs of their customers create great value for their customers, of their employees, create an amazing environment for your employees and the shareholders. They have a good business model on purpose, right? These companies were 1,400%, 14 times more profitable than the S&P average, right?
Wow.
So when we move from thinking only about me to thinking about solving for we, which has compassion at its heart, yes, we make the world a better place. But if you want to be crass, like, this is also how you make more money. This is also how you build a great business. This is all how you build a great career. This is not soft. Like, this is how you do well in the world and you make the world a better place.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's there are people who will, their ears will hear the message of this is the right thing to do for the humans. And there are other people who, even when they acknowledge that that's true, for them, it is the speech or the pitch of it's going to make more money for you too. So it's not just that you're going to be doing the right thing for the people, which should be the main reason, but it's not the only reason. It will also make more money for you. So it's win, win, win from any angle that you look at it from. Totally. So fantastic. Scott, thank you so much for joining me in this conversation. I think we can go forever, and I want to be mindful of your time, but thank you so much for everything. And everybody, please go and check out Scott's book, The Full Body Yes, Change Your Work and Your World from Inside Out. So Scott, thank you so much for being part of this live chat series that we have here in Hacking HR.
My pleasure. And one more thing, if I may.
Please go ahead.
If you'd like a way to bring this to your company, to your team in a really easy way, we created a set of tools called Changing Work, like changing work from the inside out. You can find it at changingwork.org. We built something really simple practices to bring to your team, to bring these concepts to life in a super easy way.
Oh, I love that.
Feel free to check it out.
I'm going to be sharing the link in the replay video box that we use. So thank you so much for sharing the link. Everybody, thank you so much for being here, for being present, for being engaged. If you're watching the replay, well, it's not live anymore, but thank you so much for being here. If you're live right now, please go to our website, hackinghr.io, and click on live chats. You will find all of the previous live chats that we've had, and we will continue to have many more conversations, amazing conversations like this one. So Scott, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. I will see you all soon. Thank you.